Hey everybody, I'm so glad you're here. In today's podcast, I teamed up with a business coach named Emily Fisher of Align CEO, and we're going to tackle the two major parts of setting up a foundation for your website. So, the first things first, I'm going to go over the absolute basics of setting up your website, regardless of what platform you decide to use. And Emily follows up with how websites complement your overall brand strategy and how it ties into lead magnets, socials, and more. It's a great episode full of gold, and I really think that this is one you're going to enjoy. All right, let's get to it.
Okay, well, let's go ahead. Do you want to start out by introducing yourself? Since for my audience, I'm not sure if they will know you off the bat. So let's start there.
Yeah, sure. My name is Wendy Litteral. I have been a web and graphics designer for 22 years, since 1998. And I hope that math is right. And I've been doing everything from small business websites all the way to big corporate websites to big nonprofit websites like the Office of Head Start. So I've pretty much seen it all. So I can kind of help everybody walk through like what needs to be done and kind of give guidance on what needs to be done next as well. So
That is so awesome. How did you decide that this was the thing that you wanted to do?
I kind of fell into it. My company name Creation Depot actually started out back when like Martha Stewart was like super big. This is a little bit of an embarrassing story, but like I wanted to have a crafting website. I wanted to sell crafts online. And so Creation Depot was the name for the crafting website. This is back when do you remember like pets.com and like e-commerce sites were like just becoming a thing? And that's back when I started creationdepot.com because I'm like, oh, I'll try to sell popsicle sticks and like other like crazy little things. I remember I was like late teenager at the time when this was going on.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
I was just like, this is what I'll do, And of course, what ended up happening was I got it live and it did get it working. But then people would see the site and be like, can you do that for me? And like the next, like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. And then I started finding that, well, the site was making no money, but these people were paying me to do something. And then I was just like, well, let me go look on Craigslist and see if other people need websites. And that's how I started getting other clients too, just perusing Craigslist and getting stuff. On one of my longtime clients, the Media Institute, I actually got them through an ad on Craigslist and they're still with me today. So
That is
like,
so cool.
yeah, like longtime clients. And it's just been that kind of thing just kind of evolved. Eventually I was like, well, this isn't working. And so I was like, Creation Depot kind of fits for like making websites. And so I just kind of moved it over and just that's how it became a thing. Yeah.
That is so fun. I love those like serendipitous, not that what you were expecting, but that's so cool.
Yeah, it was very cool to just kind of fall into it more or less. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the basics then. And I know, especially for my audience is traditionally people who are kind of new starting their business or looking to scale it up. So what would you say are kind of the basics of getting your website set up?
So it's a bit of a multi-part answer. So what ends up happening is first you want to have a solid idea of what it is you want to accomplish. I mean, that's true of any business goal. But once you know, okay, well, I'm definitely going to set up a site for this thing. And the reason you don't have to have like a solid idea, but you need to know what direction you're going in because you're going to start with your domain. That is the very first step. You're going to go out and you're going to do your research and you're going to figure out which domain name is going to be best suited. And it's not necessarily the name of your business. In fact, sometimes it's just a keyword, something that people would search for in Google and try to come up with for your site. Like if you wanted people to find you, what would you type in?
That's
So
really
it's
clever.
not
Yeah.
so it's not necessarily your business name. Now, you should probably still get your business name maybe as a second domain that also points to your website. But I mean, for your main builder domain name, it's not necessarily just your business name. But if you don't know what to pick, choose your company name. Start somewhere. And then the second thing is you got to find your host. Now, when I say host, it can mean an actual hosting company, somebody that holds the files for your website, or it can mean a place like Wix or Squarespace or one of those other starter website people. Whoever is hosting your website is the person that you're going to be referring to. And you depends on your skill level, how much you want to put into it. If you're okay with like a template site, then you can go with a Squarespace or a Wix. But if you are wanting something more concrete or something that's going to go a longer way, then I would highly suggest doing a WordPress site. And WordPress.com does have WordPress instances where you can set up a website through WordPress.com, kind of like you can with Wix or Squarespace, but it's with the WordPress software. But I would still suggest, like, if anyone's going to ask me, my my true answer is going to be to get yourself a self-hosted WordPress website. And
Okay.
if you get any of these hosts like SiteGround or um, I'm going to use these as an example. I highly suggest you do not use them, but GoDaddy and Bluehost, those are the two I'm really like, don't go with them. They just got too big too fast, and
Well, let's go
they're
down a little bit.
oh, I'm
Let's
sorry.
break this down a little bit. No, this is all so good. This is all so
Yeah.
good. I want to just back up a little bit. So when you're talking about the easiest places to host this website, so
Yes.
what you're thinking is WordPress, you said, is very scalable. And I agree with that, you guys, by the way. WordPress I have found is very, very scalable. What would you say is like an easier platform for people to start out if you're just new or you're struggling with the technology side?
If you're just starting out, like the
Yeah.
basics one, oh, definitely go with like a Wix or Squarespace.
Okay.
And it's the problems with Wix and Squarespace is that they've gotten much better. But there are limitations of what you can do. Now you can do a lot, like Wix especially has come a long way with being able to add like e-commerce, like a shopping cart and things like that. But there are limitations with like SEO. And the thing with WordPress is 38, I think was the last number I saw, 38% of the internet. So
Wow.
yeah, it's massive. And so Google really likes WordPress. So if your goal is to be found on the internet and not just have like a brochure website, like just something pretty for people to see, like just something that makes you seem legit, if that's all you're going for, definitely go with a Wix or Squarespace. But like that's the problem, is that WordPress is very Google friendly. Google really likes WordPress. So if you want to be found, it's just easier to go with WordPress, and
That's so
then
interesting. Yeah.
yes, it's that, and then that's why, is because they are almost 50% of all the websites in the world, which is in the billions. So that's kind of the reason why, is it's get over the learning curve now, because it will serve you in the long run.
That's so cool. And I never thought of that before. And then you mentioned another thing that be self-hosted. Now, what does that mean? Or how would you do that?
Yeah, self-hosted is basically, instead of it being hosted on like through WordPress.com, like if we're sticking with a WordPress theme, if we are being hosted through a specific place like SiteGround, or even I do hosting, but like if you're hosting through an actual host, that is called self-hosting, because you are taking the WordPress software and you are putting it on that host. So
Okay.
and oftentimes these sites will, like Green Geeks is another good one, another hosting company. You can go there and they will have an option of a package you can buy that will automatically install WordPress for you. So you don't even have to do that part of it. You just buy that particular package, and then when they send you all your like login information, WordPress login information will be right there. And your domain will, depending on how you do it, there are some like little trips along the way there. But typically, if you bought your domain and your hosting through the one hosting company, it will already be directed at your website. You'll be already ready to go. So that those kinds of packages are really appealing for new
That's
new
awesome.
beginners because
Yeah.
it's just everything's just ready to go just with a click of a button. So
And what was that website again?
which one?
The one where people could go to get like the package where it's pre-installed and
Oh, most of the hosting companies have that.
oh good. Okay.
Yeah, like you could go to any hosting company and they're going to have that, because WordPress again is so big that they've incorporated it into packages for people that just want an instance of WordPress to already be there ready to go. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can't, I don't think you can go to, I don't think I've seen any hosting company that didn't have a WordPress package ready to go.
That's so fabulous. I literally did not know any of this, by the
Oh,
way.
really?
I didn't know. That's so. I mean, I built all mine from scratch, which is like it's fun. I enjoy it a lot. So, but
Do you
that
write it from the code, or do you write it from
I do a WYSIWYG. So
okay.
I've used Wix, WordPress. I use Kartra right now, which I really enjoy. And it's actually Kartra and WordPress are almost identical as far as the way that you build the pages. So really similar with that. But no, I wish I could code. But speaking of coding and speaking of the WYSIWYG editor, which by the way, guys, that stands for what you see is what you get. This kind of just shorthand for that. When it's an easier one for those of us who aren't very techy, you can decide the colors, kind of a Word document style.
Yes.
So let's talk about content too, Wendy. So when you're creating a website for, especially for one of your clients, what are you looking at as far as what are you putting on their pages?
Okay, so when I work with a client, the first thing I find out is what is the prominent thing in their business? What is the number one thing? Like, if you had to choose one thing out of your entire business, what is that one thing that you want to push towards people? Is it that you want to grow your email list? Is it that you want to push a service or a product? Or are you a nonprofit and you really need donations? Like, what is the specific thing that you are pushing for? And that is the number one thing that you want to focus on your homepage. You want to reiterate it in your footer. Like, it's something that you want to have it be a theme throughout your whole site.
Yeah.
And from there, what are the sub products of the services? What is the secondary items, the beta items? And then once we kind of know that hierarchy, then we can start talking about what needs to go on what page. Now, typical like 5-page website is a homepage, an about page or an about me page, about us page, a product or service page, kind of like a blog landing page, and a contact page. So that is the 5-page website that most web design businesses have, just some kind of variant of that. And it basically comes down to knowing what content you want to put on those pages. So like your homepage should typically be like a massive feature of that main product. Like when they come to your homepage, boom, in your face, that's the first main thing that they see is your product or the feature that you're doing. And that can be done. Like you ever see websites that have like a giant picture when they first go to it?
Oh
And
yeah.
those are called hero graphics or hero images. And they can be video too. The only hitch with video is that it slows things down, and you really don't want to do that too much on mobile because it will really slow mobile down.
Mm.
So it depends on, how do you think people are going to come to your site, whether or not you want to implement video, or if you just want that wow feature and that's more important, then go with the video.
So good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many different avenues you can go down with that, but basically you want to have your call to action, boom, right there on your homepage, first thing, top of mind. You want people to see it and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to click that and that will take me to my next step. And what you're doing is you're warming up the audience as they go through. So if they come to your homepage and they click on that button, your next step, of course, is to be like, hey, let's talk. And I know you can talk all about this,
We'll go with it. Yeah.
Yeah. But that is the first thing you want to do. Then followed by that, you're going to have your beta items, right? Like you're going to have what's called what's called cards. It's called cards in the web design industry, but like they're like basically the boxes that you see. Like people have like little cards, little boxes underneath that will
Of different products, or what are these? The navigation.
No. Under your hero image, there will be boxes or just like sections about different
Oh,
things, about different
okay.
products or different like avenues that people could click on, different ways that they could go. What is the next important things that you want to have on your homepage to send people to? So the first thing is your big product. The next couple cards are just going to be like, okay, well, where are other places that they can go to that are still going to be top of mind that they came to you for? And then the next things you want to do is you want to get them on your email list. And the only exception to this is that if your main hero is not a freebie, like so if you want to get people, that's your goal, is you want to get your email list up,
Yeah.
then the next thing in your lineup is going to be having some way for them to continue contact with you through Instagram or through or sending them over to your YouTube channel or sending them to your email list. That is your next thing, because that should be on your homepage. And of course your footer. But then your about page, and I do have a freebie template for this. It's just
Oh, awesome.
creationdepot.com/about-template.
I will put
And
that in the show notes too.
oh, awesome. But that will walk you through exactly what you should have on this page. But what you got to remember is that nobody gives a hoot about you. Like, so when you go to set up these pages, you need to set them up like, if they're hitting your about page, they want to know a little bit more information about you, but you got to use that opportunity to send them on to something more helpful, more profitable, more something, so give them a little bit of what they want. Yeah.
I'll jump in on this for a second too,
Okay.
because the way that I teach this is, you guys remember, we are the guide. Like our customer is their own hero, right? So when you're looking at the about you, about us page, whatever, this is a really good opportunity for you to connect with your target audience, to tell the stories, create the narrative of how you serve them and who you are wanting to work with. But remember that you are the guide. So you set yourself up as an authority. Jenna Kutcher is someone who does this really, really well. If you want a good example, look at her About Me page. You'll see that the page is about her, but it's really about pulling in the kind of people that she wants to work with. So perfect example there, but just jump in real quick on that. Sorry, Wendy.
Yeah, that's a really good example. You're right. Yeah, she's got a great podcast too. She's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that is your goal. If the whole point of the website is to get people to where you want them to go, but you need to give them what they need in order to get them to go where you want them to go.
Absolutely.
So your about page should still be about you, but then also moving them to the next point. And that can be done with sidebars, or the bottom of the page. Maybe you send them onto your email list, or you send them to a product or a service that be like, this is my backstory. This is what helped me. This is what got me. And then this is where you need to go next step in your journey. That's kind of how you should go. And then the blog page is kind of a, your product or service page is going to be completely dependent on what you're selling and what you're doing. But that's basically where you talk about your product or your service, and kind of, if you're going to give prices, what the prices should be, that kind of thing for your product page. Now your blog page, that is, on WordPress, it is an auto-generated thing. So every time you add a blog post, it's going to be put on this page. So your blog page almost doesn't count because it's just going to be like blog and then a list of all the dynamically generated articles that you've created, or like little excerpts of them. So that's what your blog page is.
Which I do have to say, I adore that feature of WordPress. Yes. More so than any other platform or host I've ever used, including Kartra, which I do love Kartra, but like they organize it so much better and more automatically than any other one that I've used. Have you, is that been your experience, Wendy, or?
Yeah.
I just appreciate it, because all the other ones, you have to link it, you have to create it,
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're doing, because I've used Drupal as my other big CMS, content management system, and it does something similar, but Drupal is like for corporations because it's way more involved and intense. But you can set up what's called views and have it do the same thing for your blog page.
Okay.
And it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. But Drupal is almost like the land of too many options.
Oh,
so that's kind of why, so that's why I kind of tend to steer like small businesses. You don't need Drupal. Just go just go to WordPress.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's just too much. But then the last thing is the contact page. The contact page, you need to have what information you are comfortable with sharing. I tend to tell people, don't put your phone number or your, well, it depends. That depends. If you're brick and mortar, do put your phone number. But if you are digital, think about whether or not you want to put your phone number on there, or you want to send it to a phone number that just collects voicemail, because you are going to get spammed like crazy. Same thing with your email address. If your email address is out there, there are things called web robots. They go through and they just literally scrape the page. If they find an email address, they add it to a database, and then that email address is spammed. So what you want is that if you have a location, you want to have a Google Maps. So you can go to Google Maps, type in your address, and you can get embedded code that you can put on your contact page, and it will show where you are in location. People can get directions using that kind of thing. And then also you want to have your socials, and you want to have a contact form. And if you're using WordPress, there is a really great one called Contact Form 7, and it's literally just plug and play. You type in what you want. I think they even have like a sample one that you can just modify, and then just take that code, that short code, put it on the page, and boom, you're done. And then it will if somebody fills out the form, it will email you a copy of the form. And it's as easy as that. It really takes maybe 10 minutes to set up, and it's great.
And that can't be scraped, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That can't be scraped too, right? Because that's just a form.
That's a form. Okay,
yeah.
Security. Yeah, so that's kind of where you're coming from, is that if you're expecting a lot of traffic and you're not like set up to receive a whole bunch of calls, maybe consider not doing that.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of just something to keep in mind, is it is kind of like what balancing act do you want to play, with your contact form? And, if you can send people to like a platform like Instagram where you can talk freely through like messaging, that kind of thing. I had somebody message me this morning from my YouTube channel. He had asked a question on the YouTube channel, asking for more clarification on one of the videos I posted, and we were able to open a dialogue through there, and he's over there and I'm over here, and it's like there's still that like space. So that's why it's important, though, is just to kind of keep your boundaries. That's important.
100%. I love that. Yeah. So that's our 5 pages, right? Did we hit all of them?
Yeah, we got them all.
Yes.
Yeah.
We hit all 5 pages. That's awesome. I love that there's like a basic format. Let's talk about landing pages too. Again, I want to circle back on that. Sorry, not landing pages, lead magnets. We talked about getting people's email addresses. And now from a brand strategy perspective, this is incredibly important. I also want to hear from your perspective in design and in setting up a website, how that plays into your thought process. So what are your thoughts on lead magnets? Like, how do you get people to opt in? Like, what do you,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Like, how do you set them up, or how do
yeah,
you get or drive traffic to? Okay. Well, how do you set them up? It's basically, I get a whole bunch of questions too about, like, what's better, ClickFunnels or ConvertKit or any of these third party setups. And the answer is that they're all just making web pages. That is what they are doing. It's not that they're doing anything spectacular. Now, some of them do have a lot of automation stuff, like step ladders for your, like, adding more people, adding more to your cart if someone wants to buy something, or adding them to an automation like a drip sequence in your email. Like, they do have their place, and they do have their purpose. And I do use ConvertKit. And what is great about those pages, those services, is that it kind of takes the intensity out of it. But all they're doing is making a web page. So when you're doing your landing pages, you want to start with the first thing that's going to draw somebody in, and then give them a little bit more, and then ask them for the sale, or for the adding it to the email address or whatever, and then keep going. Add more, add a little bit more information, and then add a little bit more information. It's kind of a step down piece. And then basically the people that scroll to the bottom that actually read the whole thing, those are the really invested, because now they've spent like 5 minutes or whatever on your site, on that page, and now they're really involved with it, and they're really into it. And the design does not have to be rocket science. It does not have to be something crazy. I will say that if you are comfortable on video, go ahead and make a video and post it to YouTube. You can make it private. It doesn't have to be something that's like super public. And then just go ahead and grab the embed code for it, and then stick that on the landing page. So when someone comes to the page, immediately they start talking to you, and the visual and the audio actually creates a warmer experience for them. So they're more likely to buy from you because they trust you. So
absolutely.
yeah. So then as you go down, the actual setup of the page is basically video or picture, text, 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 call to action, which is a button, or add to cart, or whatever takes them to the next step, and then repeat, picture, text, text, a call to action. And if they get to the very bottom, maybe give them a little something more, like maybe they get a discount code, or maybe they get like an extra freebie or something like that. Like, that's the general setup. It's not rocket science. It's not hard. It's just intense, because you have to go through and make the content. But once the content's done, it's there, it's living, it's live, and you can only have to go back and edit it if you want to. So
Now, to clarify too, is this for any landing page, or is this for your sales page? Which one are we talking about right now?
you were talking about lead magnets.
Lead magnets. Okay, that's what I thought too. Yeah. So, and I totally agree. I also want to talk about lead magnets in the sense of, like, where do you plug these? Because on my website, I have pop-up bars and exit pop-ups and like all kinds of crazy stuff. And in your experience, what tends to work well? I love the way that you have that as a full page lead magnet. They can get all the info, they can opt in at the very bottom, get a discount, all of that. That's brilliant. Like, this is really, really good stuff. And how do we also weave that into other pages on our website so that people have the opportunity to see it, be aware of it? What's a good way to do that?
So I'll tell you what I've been doing. It's been working very well for me. So I use the theme of Vada on my WordPress site, and basically what it does is it works very much like coding does. With coding, you can create like a PHP include, and then you can call that include and have it there. And all the include is it's a set of information. And so you go and you can create that include, that set of information. And for my case, that's my SEO template. And I took that and I just insert that into my blog posts. So as my blog posts are coming in, I plug in this like little bit of code, which it's all visual. So it's really just like a insert SEO template box. And
Nice.
it just sticks it in between the text that I have. Like, I'll have a little bit of text, I'll have that code set in, and then I'll have a little bit more text. And at the end of the blog post, I always have a call to action to my email address. But that's how I do it throughout my site. I put out blog posts pretty regularly, because I do a blog post for everything. I do it for my YouTube videos, I do it for my podcast videos, or my podcast postings. And then I also do it for just regular content driving. Like, if I'm driving towards a
Okay.
specific thing, I will write an article for it, or several articles that I release over the month. And then in between each one of those, I do it. So it's more I wouldn't say it's strictly quantity over quality in terms of how often you should do those kinds of things, but the more you put it out, the more Google recognizes it as an active site, and that helps
Absolutely.
you. Now, the
Okay,
bigger
cool.
you get, the
Interesting.
more quality you're going to want to have, but that's a later problem.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, and
that's
I
how
think
I
this
do
is
it.
I want to jump in here too to talk about the life cycle of content as well, because you're talking about blogs versus videos versus podcasts. And that's something within our brand strategy that we need to be aware of, that there are different life cycles to each piece of content. So blogs rate the highest. Blogs have up to a 7-month life cycle on average. And if I remember the study, guys, this is where it's where they're still getting hits regularly. It's not like a one-off here and there, right? And so you look at like an Instagram post, your life cycle less than 24 hours for sure. Twitter's less than an hour. I think Pinterest is a week. And so blog posts have such a much longer life cycle. And when Wendy's talking about redirecting from one piece of content to another, being able to link these things, what you're doing as a brand is forming this web where people can come into your world. So if they find you on Pinterest, they can go to a blog that has a longer life cycle. If they find you on YouTube, they can find your website. You know, we're directing them where we want them to go. And especially when we're talking about lead magnets, and like Wendy mentioned, putting them on each of these pages, when you bring people to your website, you now are able to manage that traffic. So we talk about organic versus paid traffic. This is traffic you own, which is why we get them on our list, right? That's going to be traffic we own versus traffic that we buy when we do ads.
Mhm.
So I hope that all makes sense. We just dropped a ton of you, a ton of audio.
And no, that's exactly how it works. It's you're basically nestling in your lead in between all this other free stuff that people are absorbing and and reading, and then kind of being like, hey, by the way, I got this thing over here. If you ever see people put ads, not ads, but like at their tail end of their YouTube videos, they do it too, where they'll just be like, hey, by the way, I have this free course, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
That's how it works. That's how it happens, so yeah.
100%. And I'm going to riff on that just a little bit too, because as a brand, as a creator, you guys, we provide so much content for free. And one of the big reasons that we do that is because we are establishing this connection with people, and we're establishing this level of trust where it's like we're giving so much. We almost, I kind of hate to use this phrase, but we almost earn the right to sell to them, right? And this has been called a million different things by a million different marketers. I've heard it called a right left jab or whatever. I don't know. There's
Oh, was it Punch Punch or I know
punch
you're
punch.
talking about Gary Vander
Yeah, Gary V. Yeah, I
Gary
don't.
V. Yes. Thank you. I was trying to
Yeah,
remember the full name and I wasn't working.
it's like a right left hook. I don't know, but anyway,
Yeah.
there's a million names for it. But what we're doing, guys, is we're saying, hey, look, I want to help you, and we do. We all want to help people, and so we provide all this free content, all of these resources, and for the next level of support, and the way that I teach my students this is anything that requires more energy from you on like a personal level, that's when we start turning it into a lead magnet or a product. And I want to shift a little bit to talk about this in terms of funnels. I know funnels are a buzzword lately. Wendy, I'm sure you have opinions on this.
Yes.
But let's talk about too for a second how these magnets are often the start of a funnel where you're bringing people closer to your paid services or your products. So like Wendy was mentioning, she provides so much free content with these videos and these blogs and these podcasts and her social media content, which is awesome. And when we do these lead magnets, guys, what we're trying to create is something that our ideal client will see and go, yes, that's what I want. And when you can get that connection, you're recognizing that they can benefit from what you have to teach and sell, and they're recognizing that you're the person to provide them with that. So it's a really mutually beneficial relationship, and that's how I want to approach it. Wendy, when you do lead magnets on your website, you say that you mentioned, do you split test your lead magnets? Because I wanted to talk about that as well.
Um, I don't, and the reason is it's not a very professional reason, but the reason is mostly time. I will do it on my emails. When I send out an email, like my weekly newsletters and things like that, I will do split testing on that. Mostly because ConvertKit just makes it really easy. It's like
Yeah.
for the 5 minutes it takes me, I should just test it and see, it's not that big of a deal. But yes, for clients, that's a different matter. Like we will do split testing, like, is a red button better than a green button? Or
Yeah.
is this content, this header more, or this headline more attractive than this headline? And the trick with A and B testing is that you want to test maybe one, maybe two things at a time.
Yes.
And if
Thank you.
those two things are very different. And the reason for that is because you're trying to refine it. And if you have too many things that are different, you're not going to really know what worked, and you want to make sure that the same kind of audience is seeing those. Like if you're not changing up your advertising to it, you're just changing what people are seeing. So you won't want to change who you're targeting, because you want to make sure that you're retargeting those specific people. So
Yeah.
it's really, you just kind of change one thing at a time and just kind of work your
So
way through it.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's another thing. People throw the whole thing into. So let me back up. Sorry, I should have defined this before I toss it over. So split testing, for those of you who don't know already, is when you take a concept like an email or a lead magnet or a page, and you create two versions of it. It should be randomized in theory or have the same traffic going to it, and you see which one is closer to your desired outcome. So if you're testing a web page, for example, you would see which page converts better based off of, like Wendy said, the color you have on the buttons or
Be
the
that simple.
headline.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you can get so
Yeah.
specific with it. But you're testing to see, you're using the data that you have in order to see which gets you closer to what you're trying to accomplish. And I asked this on lead magnets because I use this personally, a little secret. I use this personally to determine what I talk about on social media. So I have a handful of lead magnets that I have in my bio. There's a link in my bio, which I'll talk about that too, and on my website. And I like to see which ones get the most attention. So I can see, I track all my data on who's clicking which links, who's going to which page, who's actually downloading, how many of those people convert to customers. And so I can see which of my lead magnets tend to attract people who are going to become purchasers at some point, and those that are like the lead magnets that get the most attention. And then I know to focus more on that. So that's another thought for you guys. If you're at the stage where you have a website, you're ready to start creating a lead magnet, but you're not sure what to put out, I do recommend doing 2 or 3 different topics and just seeing which one works the best. Wendy, do you have thoughts on that or anything to add?
Yeah, I have a simpler way. I shouldn't say it's a simpler way. I have a different way.
I hope
So,
it's simpler. Please.
yeah. Well, I think it would appeal more to people that are just starting out, just because it's like a stupid simple way. But basically all you do is, when you, like, let's say you've been posting for a while, but you don't really know what's working, but you're just kind of, this is your side business and you're just kind of hustling and you're trying to figure out what's working for you. And basically what you want to do is go into your Google Analytics. And if you start a site, that's something else I should have said earlier, but you want to make sure you have your Google Analytics code. It's just embed code. You go sign up for it, Google Analytics. I think it's just analytics.google.com. Go sign up for an account, and then it'll give you like a tracking code, and put that in your footer or your header. And it will just track everything on your site. Everybody who comes to your site, it will know all their demographic details, like more so than you ever needed to know. But basically what you do is that after you've been around for a while, go into your Google Analytics and then look at your audience's pages. What are they going to? And it will tell you which pages your site is hitting up, and for me, I was really surprised, because recently I went in there and I had a WordPress error. Like, why can't I upload images to WordPress? That had like something like 6,000 hits. And I'm like, why? Why is that so important? Because it for me, it was an old problem. Like, it happened with something that WordPress had updated,
Yeah,
but it was still getting hits all
that's
the
so
time.
funny. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's weird. And my next one was like an InDesign fix, and basically those are kind of the same things that do really well on YouTube too. So you'll kind of see
Yeah.
some similarities about what's popular and what's doing well and everything. But I just went and looked at analytics and said, okay,
I love that.
what's popular, you know?
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. And I should mention, too, I'm so glad you said that. I should mention too that I don't blog. So that's not my media of expertise. I have a couple, but so that's fabulous. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because for people who do have a blog or do have another outlet of some kind or platform of some kind, that's a great source of what topics are working really well. So great point there.
Well, I'm sure you can speak too about, like, you can do that same thing through social media posts as well,
Absolutely.
like being able to see what's working and what's not. And I'm sure you
Absolutely.
get into that too, but yeah.
Yeah, no, let's get into brand strategy. Is that okay? Is there anything else you want to go over from like a setup point of view? I'm so glad
Um,
you mentioned analytics, by the way. That's so critical.
The only other thing is that just make sure that you've got your menu set up so that reflects all the pages that you've worked so hard on. I've seen some people create some beautiful pages and then they can't get to them. So make sure your menus are good and then share it with the world. And I know you can talk to this for sure, but like it's once you have it to a place where you're like, it's not perfect, but I can get it out there, start sharing it with everyone from your mom to like all your random social media posts, your old high school group, like just get it started. And the reason is not necessarily to be like, hey, look at my perfect website. It is really a straight up Google trick. Like the more people you get to go to your site, the sooner Google's going to see it, the more authority you're going to have. And it will kind of give it like a little jump start, like a little get up and go, like when you get started. So it's not so much of a, hey, look at my new website. It's more of a, please go to my website because I need to get traffic. So that's kind of the last thing I wanted to throw out there is because yeah, that matters. It does for sure.
I love it. That is awesome. And so I love it because I was expecting you to be like, because you need to share your like gifts with the world. And you're like, no, get traffic, get SEO.
Yes, because if you can make it perfect later, like if you just get it out there, it matters. It just matters. The older your site is, the more Google likes you. That's the bottom line.
Really, I love that. And I want to underline something you said, you guys, publish now, perfect later. Like just don't worry about perfection. Get it out there. I totally agree. That is awesome. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to listen to this like 7 times.
It is a lot of information, but it's like
it's gold. It's really good stuff.
It's not as bad as it seems. I know. I just wanted to put that out there. It's not as bad as it seems. You just have to take like bite-sized pieces each time you do a little bit more, and don't get overwhelmed with the overwhelm.
And that is exactly what we were talking about. I thank you for saying that too. We were talking about that right before we started recording, and I do want to go over that real quickly for everyone, is what is when you are taking bite-sized pieces off of your website, because I know it's so overwhelming if you don't have a ton of experience and you're trying to figure this all out while you're building your brand and doing all sorts of stuff. What is the big priority, Wendy? You were telling me that when you do a website audit, you're going to give people a list of like, this is your top priority. And what would you say that people, like, what are the top 3 things that listeners or viewers should like really focus on?
The top 3 things?
Yes.
Well, for setting up a site, is that what you're referring to? Like just,
or
just
they
doing
already
an
have
audit?
a website and you say you were going to do a website audit and you were going to say like, okay, your top 3 things that need to be on point. What in general, what would those 3 things be?
Okay. Well, audit's a little different because it includes the more technical stuff as well. But I'll go ahead and say it. So the first thing you want to do is look at how your website looks just visually. Like if somebody comes to your site, how easy can they navigate your site? And the easiest way to figure this out, if you don't have the budget for like an audit, is to grab someone that's never seen your website before. It could be your brother, it could be like your next door neighbor. Be like, hey, I need you to look at the site. Could somebody please look at it and give me your honest feedback? And when they go through and look at it, if you can watch them do it, that's a little bit better. I know that's a little weird right now with COVID and everything, but if you can see them doing it, you can see, do they scroll past the thing that you were looking for, or are they able to stop and be like, oh yeah, that's where I should go, and they click on the thing that you want them to click on? Like that's what you're looking for. It's called a focus group basically, and you want to see what people are doing, what they're clicking on. There are all kinds of softwares you can install so you can see where their eyes are looking, like a camera watches them and sees where their eyes are going.
I was going to throw that out actually real quick too. Hotjar.com is what I use. They have a free version. Does that exact thing. It tracks where on the page their eyes are going. So
that's
carry
awesome.
on. Just want to throw that out there.
I'm going to write that down because I haven't heard that one. But yeah, that's the kind of thing. Is it just kind of maps out on the site where things are, like to somebody that is unknown to the site, like somebody that's brand spanking new. And what you want to do is just make sure that the thing that people are going to be interested in is the prominent thing, because as humans, we look at things from large to small. So is the thing that you want people to work on or that you want people to click on the biggest thing on the page, or is it the loudest thing on the page? And I will tell you, above anything else, your content is going to be king. Because if somebody comes to the site and it looks really cool, but they're scrolling up and down and be like, oh, look at all these animations. Okay, that is gone. But what am I supposed to do? Like, am I supposed to click on something and go somewhere? If you don't have the content to go along with the pretty, it's not going to do you any good. Design works best off good content. It does. So when I do an audit, that's the first thing I do is figure out, okay, what does the site look like? And I figure out what it looks like on desktop, tablet, and mobile. And then if I have access to your analytics, I'll go through and see, are people looking at this on mobile? Is mobile a priority? Like on my website, it's not, which you would think would be strange because it's a website design company, you know?
Yeah, that's
But
interesting.
yeah, it's not. And people, but it makes sense though, because the people that are looking at my site are in offices. Well, they're not looking
Mhm.
at on their phone in the office. They're looking at it on a computer, like a desktop computer. So it makes sense that I don't see that much mobile traffic. So if something kind of has to get lost when it goes to mobile, it's not the end of the world for me. But somebody that maybe is
For
like
me, it would be mine's 86% mobile.
oh my goodness, really?
86%, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yes, for you, that would definitely be
I design everything
definitely
in mobile view.
so that is something to consider, and you can tell that through analytics, how are people looking at your site, and you can kind of guess too based on what industry you're in, but that's a whole other rabbit hole. But then the other things too is it easy to navigate, not just your menus, but also the buttons. Are they clear? Are your buttons, are they just say click here or learn more, or do they say click here to learn more about, or something maybe more succinct than that, but like, click
Yes,
here for more information on this other beta product, something that drives them, gives them a reason to click and pushes them to the next page. Those are the kinds of things that you can do to enhance how well your website works. Because if they're just kind of scrolling through it, they're like, is this the button I need to click? Or is it further down that a thing that I'm looking for? Or maybe does the button answer a question? That kind of thing. And then the last thing I would say, just to keep this short, is to go through and just make sure that you can do site load times, how quickly does your site load? And there are website testers. If you can just Google like how fast and how do I tell how fast my site is or something along those lines, you'll come up with where you just plug in your domain name and it will tell you how quick your site is. Google has Page Insights. That's a really good one, although it gets very complicated very fast, but it will tell you how Google ranks your page out of 100. And if it comes back with something like 19, you have some work to do. And it could just be that your theme is very JavaScript heavy. It's programming language that's just very, very heavy. And Google is taking forever to load your page because of this other script. Well, if you can hire a developer to get that script out of there and get your page speed up, you're going to go up in the rankings. So
That's
because
so
Google
cool.
wants faster sites. So that's just one of the very top level overview of an audit. It's basically, what does your site look like? What are some technical issues that we can fix? Are there technical issues with your SEO? And what can we do to make it work faster and get a customer from A to B in a more efficient manner? That's an audit.
Brilliant. Just brilliant. I love to, by the way, you guys, this is not scripted. Like I just ballparked that one at it.
Oh.
Just handled that like a pro. So
Sure.
beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Let's talk a little bit about the brand strategy now, right?
Yes.
So I have a few key things I wanted to go over, and I'd love just ask you questions as we go. If I need to, clarify anything. But you really covered a lot of what I was going to say. I think you guys, what I really want to underline, if you take nothing else from this video podcast, whatever format you're viewing it in, is the ease of navigation that Wendy mentioned. A confused mind says no. If people don't know who you are, who you serve, and what you offer, they will not interact with you. Because we want, especially as human beings, like she said, we want ease. We want to know the answer. We want to know that this person has a solution for us and that we can trust them, right? So that's the primary thing people are looking for. And there's three things I want to go over primarily. The first one is creating that narrative. We mentioned this a little bit, but it's so important as part of your strategy that your website acts as a digital ambassador for your brand. And what I mean by that is, back in the old days, these brick and mortar stores would have salesmen or they would have a greeter at the door, and that person is meant to create some kind of experience for people coming into a store. They're meant to guide them to where they want, what should they be buying, that kind of thing. I used to work in sales, and to this day, salespeople are doing the same thing. They're establishing this relationship, they're building credibility, and they're directing clients towards the products that we want them to buy. And that our website now in the digital age has taken that role. So when people go to your website, whether it's their first experience with you or from social media or whatever, they're looking for the exact same things. They're looking for that credibility. They're looking for what resources you provide. And they're looking for, are you the right person to solve their problems? So that's what we want to, that's the narrative we want to create. And I think that the main way that I usually recommend that people do this is it's to have some kind of brand aesthetic. So we're looking for, what tone do you want to have? Is it something vibrant and really like colorful, something really like, do we have high contrast colors that maybe create a different feeling than something like mine? It's way light and bright and airy. So I have a very like clean, more minimalistic aesthetic. And whatever your tone is, whatever your brand is trying to express, you want to make sure that that conveys well on your website. This is also the place where people are going to feel like they know you. Website is a lot more intimate than your Instagram page. An Instagram page is more like a handshake.
I will jump in real quick and say, whatever you do on your website, also implement that on your socials. Because when you send somebody away, or either way, if you're sending them here or you're sending them there, they want to know that they are still within your hands, that they are still being guided by the same person. And if they go from one to another and it's completely different branding, even if it says the same thing, mentally there is a block. And just like you said, a confused mind that says no, it's the same thing. If you go somewhere else, you'd be like, oh, I misclicked, or I went to the wrong place. And then you just start to lose them and it unravels. So
100%. It's that cohesion. And think about it, right? Like if you met someone at a party, like say you were at a networking event and you met someone at a party and you're like, yeah, I really like this person. I'm going to go to one of their other, like maybe I'll go to their presentation or whatever. And it's a totally different person. Like they're dressed different. Like say they were super casual at the networking event and now they're just like super stuffy, really boring. You're like, what? This is not what I like. And that's how it feels when you have a really fun Instagram page or a YouTube or whatever, and then your website's really dry and boring. So it's this cohesion, right? And that's the narrative too. And that's a big thing that I talk about, you guys, is your brand story. And that doesn't necessarily mean like a literal story, okay? This is the story that people have about your brand and who it is that you serve, who it is you are as a person, what words they associate with you. And that translates as an aesthetic on your website. So that was kind of my key things there. And then the last thing, guys, I really want to make sure that you know the key things, who you are, and that includes your values, right? So who you are as a person, as a brand, who you serve, and that should be obvious. If I land on a website and I don't know if I'm in their target audience, I'm not going to offer that, so make sure you're calling out the people that you want to work with. And then the last thing is what you offer. So like Wendy mentioned several times, make it so obvious what it is they're supposed to be buying, give them multiple opportunities to find your products and services and or lead magnets, right? Wendy, did you have something else on that?
Well, not really, not too much to add to that. We've kind of covered everything, but it was basically, if you want just more along the consistency lines, if you want them to have a genuine experience with you, you want to continue that because you're going to be attracting those people to that personality, to that kind of thing. So just be you and just consistently be you, like don't, like you said about the stuffy person standing on the stage, like it's the same thing. Like you don't want them to have a different experience with you because it again confuses them. So yeah, you said it.
Okay. And that's a perfect actual intro because that's going to be my bonus for you guys, for anyone who does this, is we'll link it in the show notes again, but I did create a worksheet for how you can kind of make a cohesive brand personality that reflects who you are. And that's going to be a download for you guys. So perfect. We'll do that as well. That'll help give you that cohesion and that consistency. And then my next point is actually kind of on these same lines, and that is to use your website as the next level version of you. So Wendy, do you do like manifestation at all? Are you into that sort of thing?
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, you can't see it right now, but there's a giant vision board above my desk that I look at every single day. And it's everything from like, getting to a certain number of subscribers to like buying a couch to doing this other stuff.
Oh my God.
Like it's all up there.
Oh, we'll have to do another podcast on vision boards.
I'd be happy to share it. It's kind of crazy and it's a bunch of Post-it notes, but it's there.
Oh, that's awesome. So I love it. I love it. Okay, perfect. Well, I use my website, you guys, as a form of manifestation of the next level version of myself. And so when I think of where I want my brand to be in 6 months, I really spend quite a bit of time thinking like, okay, in 6 months to a year, who do I want to be serving? What am I moving towards? Right. And then I really build that into my website. So if in 6 months, I know that I want to be like releasing this, for example, real example for me, in about 6 months, I'm going to be releasing my signature program for my business. So I know who exactly I want in that program. And I'm going to start creating that in my website. That's the aesthetic I'm going to have. That's where I'm going to be putting people on a list because I know they're going to be interested in that. Like you can think ahead and really start manifesting the desired outcome that you want for your web traffic based off of knowing the goal, starting with what your goal is. Who do you want there, right? What do you want them to be buying? What are those people interested in? And then just kind of creating that within your space.
Yeah, it's definitely working backwards. Like you have your end
Yeah,
goal and then you go back through and you figure out what you need to do. Yeah.
100%. It's so much easier though, because when I first started, oh my God, and this is years ago on Wix, like this is forever ago. When I first started, it was like I threw up a website. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what I was trying to accomplish. And I was just like blogging here and there. And then I would like cry because no one came to my website. I'm like, how would people even find me looking back, right?
Oh gosh, yeah. No, I have a horror story too. Like I was just kind of doing this on the side and I was like, okay, well, I want to do a webinar and I do a webinar on how to set up WordPress. And oh my gosh, that's what everybody's always asking me for. I'll totally get a bunch of people. Nobody came. It was crickets.
Of
Like,
course.
it was insane. And I'm like, well, looking back, I'm like, well, of course, Wendy, you didn't market it. You didn't do these things. You
Yep.
just imagined that people were going to show up, and it made total sense. I still recorded it and then I put that recording up on YouTube. So
It's free to
future,
do.
well,
Yeah.
I realized my mistake about 10 minutes in. I was like, oh, yeah, I did do this, didn't I? So I was like, well, I'm not going to waste my time. I'll do something with it. But yeah, like it was the same concept. It was just
That's hilarious.
crickets.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. And we, to be fair too, we have to do that kind of stuff to learn. Like,
Mhm.
I think we
That's
all
how
do
you
that
know.
sort of thing. So, oh yeah, 100%.
Mhm.
And anyway, so I made the mistake of doing it from like here out, and it works so much better for me now to just think of, okay, 6 months down the road, where do I want to be? Work backwards, for
Yeah.
sure. I love that. And then the third thing that I have, guys, oh, and by the way, with that next level version too, we covered it pretty well, but I was going to also talk about the split testing and using your metrics. Um, I use Google Analytics. I also, Kartra has a pretty decent, actually, like analytics tracking on their own. And then I also use hotjar.com that I mentioned because they do the website views and you can see where people's eyes are going on your pages, see how far down they're scrolling. And so when you're creating this next level version of your brand or yourself, when you're imagining who you want to be, think about what that person or that brand is accomplishing. Think about what their metrics look like, right? And then those are going to become your KPIs. So if you want to have 6,000 people on your website every day, or if you want to have I don't know, a 20% conversion rate, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, use your metrics and start thinking, okay, how can I get a little bit closer to that with my website? How can I maybe optimize this page or make this link more direct or do a better lead magnet or something along those lines? Start playing around, look at it like this game, right? Look at it like an experiment to get to that version where you want to be.
Mhm.
So,
And it's
yeah,
an ongoing game too, because things change. But
100%.
I want to give you a chance to explain what a KPI is. You
Yes,
threw that
thank you.
acronym out there and yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So KPI is your key performance indicator. Sorry, I came from the corporate world, so this is I sometimes forget the translation.
I caught it
So,
and I'm like, oh, they might not know what that is. So
yeah, perfect. So a key performance indicator, typically, guys, this is from Google Analytics. This is from looking at your conversion rate, your sales numbers, your views. I also teach like an intuitive KPI where I think of, okay, again, more from a manifestation perspective, like who do you want to be in 6 months? What is your brand going to be in 6 months? And then intuitively, what metrics would really show that you're making progress towards that? So for me, I kind of want to make an empowerment empire. That's my big high level mission or vision. And I know that, okay, I want to serve 2,000 people by the end of Q2 next year. That means intuitively, I need to be tracking my metrics of how many people are buying from me or downloading my things. And so these more intuitive, more like personal metrics are really what have helped me get excited about what I'm doing. And when I'm looking at this wall of everything I have to do in the overwhelm, it's so much easier to say like, okay, well, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And if I can just get a little bit closer to that, then I'm in the right direction.
yes.
So,
And I have to say that it doesn't have to be something complicated too, because like I have a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper on my wall. That's literally just hand drawn grids of YouTube, Instagram, my weekly sessions. Sessions are when someone comes to your website and how many pages they go to, that's called a session.
oh,
How many
cool.
sessions I've got on the site, like, and I do this every week. and I just see how much better am I than last week. I just hit all the different metrics for how many people are on my email list, and I go through. And I will tell you, it is the most rewarding thing to see progress.
Thank you.
Even if it's like, oh, I got 2 new subs, or this massive jump that just happened on YouTube. Now I got 20 new subs, like that was a big, like, hurrah, like feather in my cap, like walking around, like it was awesome.
100%.
But it matters, like like you were talking about manifestation, like seeing it there and knowing, like on my vision board, I got where I want to go, and over here on my hand drawn chart, I've got
That's how you're gonna get there.
how I'm doing. Yeah,
100%. I love that, and I feel the same way. I think it's so exciting because, like, it's the same thing in anything. If you're not tracking your wins in life, or you're not tracking your progress, then you're just like bebop. You're just working all the time. It's just a lot of work, right? So I love that. I've also heard of people doing marbles, like they'll put a marble in a jar every time they get a new, like, so whatever's fun for you, do that.
Whatever. And I've heard like chain links too, like paper chains.
Yeah.
And then they tear off a chain every time they get to one or something. And every time when they get down to one, they've reached their goal.
That's cool.
Like and that goes for everything. I mean, I equate it to like a weight loss. Like, like when you add a marble or you like check something off, you do a tally, it's one more visual reminder that you've gotten that much closer,
And how funny is it that it's so natural in all these other industries and all these other areas of our life? We're like, of course we would track how many pounds we've lost, like we use a scale, of course we would track that. But in our business, nobody does. Almost everyone I work with one-on-one, I'm like, okay, what metrics are you tracking? And they're just like, question mark.
Or they don't know that it even exists, that they could do that, and it's remarkable. I'm like, oh, they all tell you. They all tell you. Pinterest tells you.
I think it's so fun. I think it's fun. That's why I do what I do though. So I love it. That's awesome. I'm glad that you do the same, Wendy. That's super cool. And then my last thing, you guys, the last tip I was going to give as far as a brand strategy is just to think outside the box. Websites are evolving. Wendy's given you the 5 basic pages, which are such an awesome framework. And I want to really empower everyone listening and watching to make your own rules and see what works. One of the biggest problems I see in this industry is people will tell you what to do. And I think they're trying to give you somewhere to start. I think they're trying to give you help, right? But people will hold themselves to these rules, or they'll hold themselves in this box of like, I can't launch my website until I have these 5 pages. Or, I can't do this until I have a blog, or I can't, we make up a lot of constraints for our brand. And I really just want to say, think outside the box. Challenge yourself to see if you can set up a 1-page lead magnet. That's how ClickFunnels started out, right? It was a single landing page with a single lead magnet that put you into an email list, the whole thing. So challenge the paradigm, challenge yourself to, if you feel constrained by a rule, or you feel like you can't make progress forward, just look at how can I get to the next step? And if you have to make something up that is completely unreasonable, I give everyone permission to be unreasonable. I give you permission to do things the wrong way if it still helps you make progress, right? So that's one thing I really want to emphasize, is just, even with something like websites that can't, is such an important part of your brand and such a cool thing, you can still be so creative with them and do them in your own way. So
very much so. I mean, we said that when we first started, right? Like we said, like you can go to Wix, you can go to Squarespace, and just get it started, get something. It's not the best, in my opinion, it's not the best place to have a long-term site, but you can certainly get started. And then just when you're ready to go to the next step, have your domain pointed to a different place. That's all there is to it. It's not hard. It does take up to 48 hours, but that's it. How quickly does 2 days go by,
100%. And especially, I want to say too, that I've worked with people who are small businesses, they have a very low following, transitioning their websites, easy peasy. Like, I know it sounds hard, I know that seems difficult, but I've also worked with multi-million-dollar brands that are transitioning their website, and you can do it at any level, and just make sure that whatever you're doing is more aligned with who you are, with what you're offering, and who you're serving. So if you start out on Wix, you can always change it, you guys. It's easier when you're small, I will say. So play around now, like experiment now, right? But if I didn't like WordPress, to me, it makes sense. Like, Wendy, you're a pro at it. It was, to me, too much time. So I switched over to a done for you. Kartra does it for you pretty much. And so, it's easy. I had a whole website on WordPress, and I could have been like, oh, I put so much effort in, I put so much time, but I just burned the whole thing. So let's start over. So do what makes sense for you. Don't be afraid of experimenting. And but I totally agree with what you said. So
And you got to remember, websites are a living document. Like they never die. Like it's, once you start with a website, you can modify it and modify it and modify it. They're literally living documents that you just imagine that you're got a bunch of people going in and editing it all the time. And that's what's happening, because you have everyone who visits your site kind of changes your thought process on it. Or as the industry changes, you're going to have to make changes. I mean, how many of us have had something come through and just like like everybody was on MySpace, and then all of a sudden MySpace is gone. Like MySpace transitioned to music. Who knew? And then and then it just like evaporated and disappeared. I think it still exists, but I'm not sure. But
It does
that's
still
an
exist.
example. They were trying to move with the industry. Like people were coming there for their bands. It basically became a band site. So they shifted. So if a huge corporation can shift, you can too. It's not as intimidating as it seems. It's literally pull up the page and type something different. It's not
100%.
difficult. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. This is a perfect note to end on too. Be empowered, you guys. I love it. Any other final thoughts, Wendy, or anything else you wanted to go over? We're almost like right on the hour. This is awesome.
Yeah, we are. We timed this perfectly.
Yeah. Totally on purpose.
Totally on purpose. I think we just want to go. You want to say anything about what you have going on and where people can find you?
Yes, please. Yeah, let's do that. I didn't even introduce myself. So I kind of skipped my intro, but for those of you who are still with us, my name is Emily Fisher. I started the brand The Aligned CEO. I do business coaching specifically on strategy and mindset. And right now, my offerings are pretty limited. I am running a special until the end of this month. So hopefully this posts before then for a heavily discounted one-on-one strategy session. But I'll also link my lead magnet in the show notes so you guys can get that kind of brand confidence, that brand, cohesion as well, like written down, and just check it out from there. So yeah. And Wendy, what about you? What do you have going on? Are you doing a special or?
Yeah, actually, I have a new freebie coming out. It is a WordPress. I'm going to read it directly for you. A WordPress website checklist, and you can get it at creationdepot.com/web checklist. And it's basically like a one pager of what I talked about today. And it's just bullet point list of what you can go through. So you can just check it off as you go through, and you just tackle one thing at a time, and then eventually you'll get a 5-page website at the end of it. And you can always find me on Instagram at Wendy_Litteral. Litteral has 2 T's. And then YouTube is just youtube.com/Wendy Litteral. And you can always email me at wendylitteral@creationdepot.com.
Gold. That is awesome. Thank you so much, Wendy. I appreciate it. That checklist is going to be amazing.
It didn't take too long to put together, but it is the summary of everything I do.
Perfect. No, that is gold. I'm going to get it. I love it.